Well, welcome to our thought for the day for Monday, the 15th of June. My name is Graham Hoslett. You may well know the poem Footprints, Footprints in the Sand. One night I dreamed a dream. As I was walking along the beach with my Lord, across the dark sky flashed scenes from my life. For each scene I noticed two sets of footprints in the sand, one belonging to me and one to the Lord. After the last scene of my life flashed before me, I looked back at the footprints in the sand. But I noticed that at many times along the path of my life, especially at the very lowest and saddest times, there was only one set of footprints. This really troubled me, so I asked the Lord about it. Lord, you said once I decided to follow you, you'd walk with me all the way. But I noticed that during the saddest and most troublesome times of my life, there was only one set of footprints. I don't understand why, when I needed you the most, you would leave me. In the poem, of course, God answers, and we'll come to the answer at the end of our thought for today. But a number of Psalms asks the same question in a number of ways and come up with a variety of answers. Our psalm today, Psalm 77, begins, I cried out to God for help. I cried out to God to hear me. When I was in distress, I sought the Lord. At night, I stretched out untiring hands, and I would not be comforted. As a person of faith, the psalmist is so unsettled. Not so much by his own worries and anxiety about his present and future, but at the thought that God has turned away. Not just been angry once, but walked off in a huff. In verses 3 and 4, he's so unsettled, he says his spirit faints. He can't sleep, he can hardly speak. So he asks in verses 7 to 9, will the Lord reject forever? Will he never show his favour again? Has his unfailing love vanished forever? Has his promise failed for all time? Has God forgotten to be merciful? Has he in anger withheld his compassion? Has the Lord picked up his towel, shaken out the sand, turned his back on the sea, turned his back on me, the psalmist asks, and headed for the car park? In the title it says, of Asaph. Well, we don't know who Asaph was or precisely when he was writing his psalms, probably writing during the time of the Babylonian exile, probably not long after the city of Jerusalem and the kingdom of Judah had fallen, the city being destroyed, the temple razed to the ground, the best of the people deported to Babylon, all hope seemingly gone. Has God forgotten? But in verse 5, the writer has already indicated how all who believe can find a way out and a way through in troubled times, without abandoning their trust in the Lord. In verse 5, he says, I thought about the former days, the years of long ago. And verses 10 to 12, then I thought, to this I will appeal, the years when the Most High stretched out his right hand. I will remember the deeds of the Lord. Yes, I will remember your miracles of long ago. I will consider all your works and meditate on all your mighty deeds. When we feel abandoned, when it seems to us the Lord has probably left the beach, remember the times he has worked. Remember those times when the Lord hasn't seemed so far away. After remembering, reflecting on the Lord's action in the past, in verses 13 and 14, the tense in the psalm suddenly changes from the past tense to the present. Your ways, O God, are holy. What God is as great as our God. You are the God who performs miracles. You display your power among the peoples. In Hebrews 13 verse 8 we read, Jesus Christ is the same yesterday, today and forever. In Malachi 3 verse 6 it says simply, I, the Lord, do not change. What he was then in the good years, in the good days, in the years gone by, in their yesterday, in our yesterday, he still is in our today, and he still will be in all our tomorrows. The times might change, we might change, but he never will. In verses 16 to 19, the psalmist returns again to remember how God had hundreds of years before led the people through the Red Sea. Now, you might not have to go so far back in your remembering to remember when the Lord was with you and when he acted for you. But we can, if we need to, go so far back. In 16 to 18, the waters saw you, O God, the waters saw you and writhed, the very depths were convulsed. The clouds poured down water, the heavens resounded with thunder, your arrows flashed back and forth, your thunder was heard in the whirlwind, your lightning lit up the world, the earth trembled and quaked. He was then a God of power, he still is. And then verse 19, your path led through the sea, your way through the mighty waters, the psalmist says, though your footprints were not seen. It won't always be the case that the Lord seems to be with us. But that doesn't mean that he isn't. God had surely led them, walked with them then, though only the people's footprints and those of Moses were written in the sand of the seashore, as the people left Egypt and the Egyptian army far behind. Your path led through the sea, your way through the mighty waters, though your footprints were not seen. In the poem Footprints, the writer asks, Lord, you said once I decided to follow you, you would walk with me all the way. But I noticed that during the saddest and most troublesome times of my life, there was only one set of footprints. I don't understand why, when I needed you the most, you would leave me. Of course, in the poem, we get the answer. The Lord whispered, my precious child, I love you and will never leave you. Never, ever during your trials and testings would I ever leave you. When you saw only one set of footprints, it was then that I carried you. I rather like Tim Vine's, the Christian comedian's alternative answer. In his version, the Lord replies, my precious, precious child, I love you and I would never leave you. During your times of trial and suffering, when you see only one set of footprints, there was only one set because in those moments I thought it might be nice if we both hopped through the trouble, if we both skipped together. Look, as believers in Jesus, whenever it seems God is far away, when we can't see any footprints in the sand, no matter how long and hard we look, that doesn't mean that he hasn't been with us. It doesn't mean that he isn't now with us. It doesn't mean that he won't still remain with us to the very end of the age. If we can only see one set of prints in the sand, well, it's probably not because he is hopping. But it may well be, as the poem says, that he's carrying us so close we can just no longer see him. Your path led through the sea, your way through the mighty waters, though your footprints were not seen. Whether you can see his footprints alongside yours now or not today, don't be afraid, only believe.